What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MindShare podcast. This show is sponsored by Kits Keep In Touch Systems, a two-time international award-winning marketing suite for sales professionals. REM Real Estate Magazine, Canada's premier monthly magazine for real estate professionals. And RIA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, Canada's largest provincial real estate association. You can learn more about all of our sponsors by visiting my site, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out the details of our upcoming MindShare Mastermind, as well as download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle so you can build more mindshare to get more market share. Plus, learn more about our one-to-one coaching and keynote speaking. Today's episode is number 284. He is an author, businessman, and speaker, best known for his theories on wealth and performance. He has coached icons, legends, titans of industry, sport, entertainment, and politics for over 25 years, producing billions in revenues and net worth. His performance-based thinking covers subjects such as wealth, branding, business, leadership, personal and professional success, life, and motivation. He says, a life worth living means giving back to make the world a better place. He has spent a lot of time with incredible organizations doing life-changing work, such as the Sick Kids Hospital, Canadian Charities Association, iCAN, the Millenium Charitable Foundation, Shining Through Foundation for Autistic Children, among others. He has served as president of 5 privately held companies with diverse interests ranging from mutual funds, wealth management, hedge funds, and human capital development to marketing, branding, communication, and leadership. He has shared the stage with political figures ranging from U.S. presidents to iconic figures, and he has advised some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. His writing and speaking is based on his very own urban life philosophy, dolanetics, a model to more, where he asserts our relationship to life and all experience of it shapes and shifts our relationship to success, achievement, and more. Joining me on this episode of the MindShare podcast is self-help financial wealth coach, Richard Dolan. Richard, welcome to the MindShare podcast.
Man, what an introduction, dude. I got to get you to come and do those introductions for me at family events, barbecues, bar mitzvahs, and heck, maybe I should book you right now for my funeral 100 years from now, man. That was fantastic.
Oh, my man, you know, it's interesting. I was doing a whole bunch of digging and going, we got to wrap this up. You deserve like this proper intro. And I still got it in my head and the video that you've got on the website. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Dolan. I can hear it in my head.
Man. I mean, listen, it's pretty prolific whenever you get introduced. I mean, for anyone that's watching this, both live and recorded, anytime you get introduced, you always have an out-of-body experience because it's like, man, they're talking about someone pretty cool, and they don't realize it's actually you. So, hey, man, a real pleasure to be here. Grateful for the invitation, and to all those who are checking us out and watching us live.
Listen, man, it's an absolute honor, and I know what you mean by the intros. It's funny, though, because I get this different feeling. Every time they do my introduction before I step on a stage, I think to myself, like, man, I just got to tell them to say my name so I can walk up there. Sometimes it just almost feels awkward. But it is definitely,
because sometimes it feels like it's a little bit of an accounting and inventorization
Right.
of the things that you've done and have yet to get done. And so, I mean, there's some things that you think, oh gosh, why did they mention this? And, or I'm a dad also, or I love to give back, or I'm and on and on and on. But introductions set context, and you set a great context. So, man, tell me, how have you been?
You know what, my man, doing well. Very grateful. You know, it's funny. You mentioned, being a dad and doing all these other things. I am incredibly grateful. We've got 2, successful businesses that we run, but that's like the day-to-day stuff. We've got a beautiful wife at home. I got 2 incredible children. We spend our time between baseball fields and hockey rinks. If I'm not doing that, I'm hopefully riding the bike and getting on the Harley and doing some trips. How can we not be smiling, man? Life is a beautiful place. You got to make the most of it every single day.
You bet.
So listen, this show, and we were saying this just before we got on air. This show is one way that we support our mission. We leverage this as a channel to get out there and help as many people as we can do more. To do better, to be the best version of themselves that they can possibly be. And that's at whatever it is, between both life and business. We serve a variety of industries. We spent a lot of time with people who are specifically in the real estate industry. And this is exactly where I saw the alignment between you and I today, be able to bring you on the show and for our audience that is here. And I do want to start out by sharing to everybody. And whether you're watching us live right now or you are listening to this recording, understand that the only way Richard and I got together and are here today is that through the power of networking, through the power of connection. We didn't know each other. We're just getting to know each other. And a mutual friend of ours made the introduction just thinking, hey, you two need to get together. And so, again, I just emphasize to everybody, when you're out there every single day, we talk about all this AI and all this technology and lead generation. Remember, the best way to do it is to just have a conversation with people, smile, make eye contact, say hello. So anyways, man, listen, better you than me. I shared a bit about you. And I mean, I think the list went on for about a mile for the presidents that you've been on, you've worked with, the celebrities, the companies. Can you share a little bit more with our listeners? Who are you? Moreover, what is your daily mission on a daily?
Hey, look, man. I mean, I'm super grateful that I've been able to do a lot of really cool, magical, and blessed things. I mean, for me, it's just a kid from Thorncliffe Park who grew up through impossible odds and was able to, in spite of being a high school dropout, do quite well by some incredible icons and legends. And I always say, dare I say, gods of commerce and industry, culture, and all things commercial. So for me, being able to do the things I've done for 30 years has been a remarkable journey. But for me, I'm a venture catalyst. As an investment banker by training, I really grew up and through the channels of wealth management, financial planning, asset gathering. I've worked for banks and financial institutions. I've advised family offices and ultra high net worth people. And at some particular point during that time, I even had a chance to be able to teach how to sell and market wealth management services at Schulich School of Business, the Executive Development Center, as well as the Certified Wealth Management course. I wrote books on the subject. I'm a huge research geek inside the world of behavioral finance, happiness economics, investor resilience. Writing my first book inside that domain with Dr. Paul Stoltz, the grandfather of investor resilience, research and data collection. And so in all that time, for me, what had happened was I fell into an opportunity that I didn't realize would alter the trajectory of my life. And I had sponsored an event where it was featuring at the end of this day, President William Jefferson Clinton, the 42nd president of the United States. It was his coming out party. He had just left office and he was becoming a public speaker. And so I noticed that the person that had been introducing the speakers through the day was quite flat, didn't do an introduction quite like yourself. And so I told the promoter, I said, hey, man, if there's any way I can promote and or present the president better than that guy, would you give me the opportunity? It came down to a function of his sponsorship levels, and I was at the bottom. This other guy was at the top.
Yeah.
And so I missed the opportunity, but I gained it again another time. So it presented itself. I took the opportunity and I presented the president in a way that moved both him and the promoter. I mean, irreversibly. So
Wow.
I won an opportunity to keep introducing the president whenever he came into Canada, then eventually across the States.
Oh, that's
So
wild,
that
man.
opened up a very big Pandora's box. I right in that moment realized, man, it's good working with very big iconic people. And so that started me on that stage. Yes, I worked with Tony Robbins,
Yep.
and yes, I've done some work with some other really notable people. But up until that point, I was really just putting myself into a position to market myself better as a wealth management asset gathering machine. I just wanted to go where the eyeballs were before the internet was a thing, before social media was even here, before we could TikTok our way into asset gathering. I needed to be in front of people, and that worked out to be the best plot.
It's funny. We've got a term, and as you see the name MindShare 101, the MindShare podcast. A lot of what we do is we talk about building MindShare. Now that it's a piece of it. That's the marketing aspect. There's the mapping part, which is mapping out what we want in life. MindShare and getting those eyeballs, big deal. This is where we grow. And this is again where I say, I mean, hey, our buddy Nick, who I met, it was eyeballs. Next thing you know, here we are. So I was digging in.
But I got to back you up a second. I think it's also important to understand that reputation and relationship are important, but being relevant and having the power to resonate is more. And the reason why is because we might have reputations and we might have even relationships, and a lot of us do. I mean, I'm wildly connected. I'm sure you are too. And I mean, people like the Nicks of the world, as amazing as he is, and I love him to death, and I've known him a long time. He is also, but if Nick didn't believe that what I was doing was relevant, and given who you are and the show you've got wouldn't resonate with us, we wouldn't have been brought together. And a lot of times people just think
100%. Yeah.
because you shake hands, kiss babies, knock on doors, and go to networking events, you'll make business happen. Showing up isn't enough. You can't just go to the gym and think you're going to get in shape. You got to work those machines. They don't work you. And so as a result of that ideology, MindShare is about understanding that it's a function of sharing your mind itself with others looking for more. So for me, I just want you to know that I think that's what's important to just put in, is that we both have great reputations and great repertoires, but we also have things that are happening that resonate with each other, but also are relevant for now.
It's a great point, man. Yeah, I like the way you coined that. I'm gonna have to go back and practice on that one as well, because I'm gonna use that the way just the mind, the sharing of the minds. Well said, very well said. Now, as we talk about that, one thing I was reading about here was dolanetics. Now I understand that's a play on words there. But I want to ask you, because I know it is a theory. I know it's something that you've got, that you teach, that you believe in, but I don't fully understand it. So I thought I'd ask you, and for everybody here, what is dolanetics, and how can we leverage that and or apply it on a daily basis for ourselves?
Well, I mean, that's a deep conversation.
I guess that's a loaded one, right?
That's a word. No, it's okay. I mean, look, I've been able to, out of sheer curiosity, having come from a place where I had no easy way out. I didn't come from the Lucky Sperm Club. I wasn't part of the Kosher Nostra. I mean, I didn't have the ability to say I was a part of this lucky clan or I was a part of this great gated community.
Yep.
I had to really, truly create for myself a way up and out of where I began. So for me, I was feverishly obsessed over just what made successful people that way. And so for me, I went on a lifelong journey of not just reading books and attending workshops and going to boot camps and heading off to weekends and going to summits and heading off to conferences. I became obsessed. And thank God I was in an industry that funded that. I was in the financial services space where they were weaponizing sales guys like me. And they were like, hey, you want to hit the road and go learn all they can? Only one condition: come back and teach our people what you learn. Perfect thing for a guy like me. I was a sponge and I was hungry. And the combination worked out. So for me, what I'd been doing, what I'd been codifying the education I was enduring. So I would learn stuff, inventorize what I learned by writing it down and putting it in books, and then codifying it. So being able to write books and being able to codify work like performance, being able to put together stuff like that, which had allowed me to put my work into a publication where now I actually own the IP. So dolanetics is one of dozens of what I would call proprietary tools that I created out of the intellectual storehouse that I've been able to manifest over 3 decades, to say dolanetics, to your question,
Yep.
is all about the understanding of the origination of you. So how did you come to be you? Like, how did you become you? How did I become me? And are those things permanent? Like, am I stuck this way? Am I going to be permanently wired this way to move through life and the trajectory of my experience to it in perpetuity? It was something that was quite puzzling. So dolanetics was really a play on words from the 70s. Dr. Maltz, his work, his award-winning work in cybernetics, which was understanding that we have a condition to perform that if left out of study, you would not know the functional constraints to it. So more simply put, dolanetics was just my way of saying, hey, I'm gonna reverse engineer what I've learned, what cybernetics taught me, but more importantly, the things I've been able to adapt and understand over the past 30 years and put it into my own approach. So dolanetics is an approach to how to unpack yourself, so to repack it better. Kind of like, spring cleaning the garage. Clear it all out, and what's on the curb goes to the garbage. What's on the driveway gets donated or given to mom and dad or your brother and sister. And then whatever's really the things you really absolutely need go back in the garage once you've cleaned it all out. So dolanetics performs spring cleaning for human beings. It's a matter of being able to unpack who you are, so to in fact reset what you want to be from an existential ontological level, which is all about like how you're experienced out here and how you tick inside here.
I love the comparison there to cleaning out the garage and repacking it. Totally get that. I was last week on stage at Realtor Quest, Toronto Regional Real Estate Board's big conference and trade show that they do once a year. It's massive. There's about 12,000 people to walk through the doors. And I was presenting on a topic called Your Blueprint for Success. And so much of it is about how we're wired and the habits that we carry with us. And why did something become a habit versus how do we get rid of that habit or change a habit or get ourselves to that place that we ultimately want to be? And it really does come back down to, and as you say, dolanetics, so much of that. When you say about learning and packaging and inventorizing and taking some of that and reframing it in the way it comes out from you, very much the same. An ongoing, studier, learning, reading, taking in, experiencing. How did they do that? The more we can do that, the more we can feed our brains, the better we become. Now, you've got it.
But I will rebuttal on you on one thing, and it's not a pushback, it's a compliment. I mean, habits is a label we give things when their behavior is left out of check. So, for example, if someone said, my son's got a really bad habit. He leaves the toilet seat up all the time. Bad habit. Well, that's one possibility. Or what I would say, especially in the world of performance psychology, is that there's an absentism of a commitment to be performing consistent with a commitment that's either been obvious
100%.
So habits, when people think that we become the habits we keep, no, we become the conditioned behaviors if left unchecked. So really what we are is a consortium of either commitments, absentism of commitments, or broken commitments in motion. And habits is just one way we actually relate to something to give it a story as if it's something like cyclical that needs to be broken, conditioned, or removed when they're choices. So I'll say it a different way. If I told you had a bad habit of touching the oven when it's on, you think to yourself, okay, I've got to break that habit. But if I turned it up to the highest temperature possible and you were to touch that stove when it was scalding hot, I promise you'd break the habit of touching that oven ever again. In fact, you probably would never even touch a cold oven ever again because you'd have a fear of That's my point. So when people, I think we've been conditioned to believe that habits are something that need to be conditioned, reconditioned, or removed, when in fact they are basically commitments left unchecked.
I like the framing of that. I really do. I would agree with it. And I would also say that we do frame habits in a negative. Habits can be very much framed in a positive, right? Because when we look at what it takes to build a habit, we got 3 steps: the trigger, the action, the reward. And typically speaking, it's the reward that causes people to want to go back and do it. And that's the trigger to keep doing more. So how can we reframe and leverage those and take the idea of habit and put it into the positive context to how we operate in a day and the things that we do and the things that we focus on?
I mean, first of all, I mean, you're overcomplicating something that could be quite simple. I mean, I've won 3 NBA championship rings, and I know that.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Like, you're not a basketball player. Why have you been gifted 3 NBA championship rings?
But before I tell you why, let me just reference why I've referenced it. The reality is that when I look at a basketball player, they are not a collection of habits. They're only a demonstration of performance. Principles and mechanisms that are only built to do one thing, and that's win. All they are happy about is winning, and rightfully so. So for me to understand where habits are formed, it all starts in the mind. Back to your context of why we're talking about this. I mean, at the end of the day, we're only surviving machines. We're not built to win. We're not built to, in fact, even be happy. We're only built to do one thing. Our brains perfected only one act, my friend, over 3 million years of existence, and that's to survive. Nothing else. Not to love, not to be connected, not to be in community, not to be in conversation, not even to be motivated. It's only built to do one thing. And anything that contradicts or implies a conflict, crisis, or uncertainty to your survival, your brain kicks in and says, we're under threat. And that's why it's a real fight every day to be happy, to be on purpose, to be in motion. So when we start contextualizing habit like it's some sort of construct of phenomenon, it's us playing a seductive maneuver using language and lexicon to really describe one thing. You're not up to something great. If you're up to something great, your habits are like truly wind in the breeze. It's irrelevant. So when I watch top peak performers, whether they're Olympic athletes, whether they're NBA champions, whether it's Drake at the top of his game, whether it's Mike Tyson re-entering a ring at 54, when they focus on what they are having, they are not their habits. Habits are really the representation of a collection of excuses and stories and drama that we've contextualized just to simply live with it and live mediocrely at best. So when you start to study peak performers at the top of their game, whether it's billionaires, titans of industry, or icons of sport and culture, you'll start noticing that the separation is they'll never say they've got habits. None of them do. The top performers.
Well, would you suggest that the reason that they became a top performer was because they were doing the right things on a daily? They were going out, they were putting in the effort, they were putting in the work, they knew what had to happen. There was
Yeah.
consistency. There was a
Yeah.
dedication to the process.
Well, hold on. Look at the words that you're using. I mean,
Yeah.
those are all words to describe the extension of someone's commitment in action.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yes, discipline, and yes, hard work. And
Right.
you've got kids who are sports active. I mean,
Yep.
I've got a son who performs for the Nike Signature Elite League. He's a basketball player, so I watch what he has to do to be in that part of sport. But I also recognize when he's not consistently in alignment with the behaviors and the choices and the decisions that will put him consistently in that 1%. And I got to tell you, most of the time being a dad, part-time coach to him, is he's not in alignment to that. So it's always a matter of making sure that we're in check. So left to our own devices, I mean, the reality is this, and let's not slice this too hard. I mean, the reality is that we've I think for me, I have a little bit of an allergic reaction to the word habit because
it sounds like it.
habit is we're not a habit, and there's no such thing there. If you have a bad habit, then you're basically creating a bad conversation to excuse bad behavior, and you're calling it a habit. So good performers and peak performers don't have good habits. They have great commitments. They have an intentional life. They have rules, boundaries, discipline. They put in the work. Yes, they do all that, but the word habit doesn't show up. The word habit is only a mechanism of excuse to pardon yourself from actually being an actor in peak performance.
See, and I look at that a little differently when it comes to the habit of if you build out the right habits, and we talk about the dedication and the discipline, and it's to what?
Hold on a second. So is going to the gym a habit?
Pardon me?
Could going to the gym be a habit?
Going to the gym could be absolutely going to the gym's a habit. Why? Let me explain why. I go there, I have a good workout, so there's the action. I then get the reward, and I feel good. So now I want to go back. Now there's definitely those days where you sit back and go, man, I don't know if I want to go today. I don't know if I want to work hard today. Yet the discipline to the process, and really again that commitment to what it is that we want at the end of the day.
So here's what I stress.
Yeah.
What I stress is that people have got to stop philosophizing on things and just start with one place, the dictionary. The dictionary is a great place to start an intellectual conversation about what anyone would be debating or conversing about. So I've taken the liberty of going to Oxford Dictionary. Yep. And here's what habit says by definition.
Go for it.
It is a settled tendency or usual manner of behavior. It's an acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly or completely involuntary. So the question becomes, what's a habit? If going to the gym is an involuntary act, then how can that be a habit that would be, in fact, a positive thing? That's my point, brother. It's a pattern of behavior that's acquired by frequent repetition or psychological exposure that shows itself as a regular act, right? So for me, it's the saying, habits are fine if you want to talk about that, but that's not where peak performance lives. What I'm just saying is that if you're looking at and studying many people that want to perform, habits is not where you start. It would be mindset. It would.
I agree with that, Rich. I agree with you 1,000,000%, man. You got to have the right mindset for it. You got to want it.
It would be the actions. It would be the way in which you review, recalibrate, in fact, reflect on the results you've created, and then the reaffirmations in which you say, "Hey, that was good." But there's no habits in that. If there's habits, they're activities. They might be commitments, things scheduled in your day that you say, "I'm going to do these things," but those aren't habits. And so I think we're spending way too much time on habit. But
So here, you've got a theory which proposes that we were all born, and I think this really lines up here, but we were all born with a unique source of origination, a state of thrownness, which we were thrown into, comprised of people, environment, beliefs, and conversations, shaping our relationship to ourselves, others, the world, and future itself. Is that right along the lines of what we were just talking about? Like, can you tell us more about that?
I mean, it could be. I mean, what you're referring to is the epicenter of the definition of what gave you who you are. So what I'll call your state of origination, like where you started from, is actually born in Martin Heidegger's philosophy, the German philosopher who said that the state of thrownness is the thing that you, in fact, had no say in. So in other words, I was born into a world where I had no say on the color of my skin, the height I got, the language I speak, the conversations around me, the DNA pool I come from, all the disposition I have, all the beliefs, the religion, the education, the neighborhood, the environment I had, all of that was what we call a state of thrownness. No different from a child being born in Ukraine right now, has no say in the matter that they're blonde-haired, blue-eyed, but born into a state of war. They have no say in the language they speak, how they grow up, how they might starve, or how they're in danger. They have no say in the matter. So what I'm saying is that how you started isn't how you finish. How you started is, in fact, the baseline of your default position, so that if you don't cause and create what comes next, you are only going to be but a template of the past, of where you came from. That's why if you study our own lineage, if you go back and look at your parents and your parents' parents and your parents' parents' parents, you'll notice that from generation to generation, there wasn't a lot of deviation of style, culture, values, views, opinions, conversation, tonality. They're almost very similar. They compounded one another. It's when we started to understand and recognize we have power to choose and to design our own lives that we can say, hey, I might speak English right now, but I could go off and learn how to speak Spanish or Italian or Greek. Or I'm a Greek person, but I can go speak, English, and on and on. My father was a cop. My grandfather was a cop, and therefore I'm a cop. Or I could go and be, a florist, or an actor, or a musician.
So the power of evolution.
It's the power of choice, right? Which is an element of evolution. Like evolution just doesn't happen to us.
You've got to choose to evolve. Absolutely.
That's right. And so as a result, that's what you're touching on right now. When you start to pull apart the thesis of dolanetics. Dolanetics is a very large construct, and it's all about handling one major challenge people have, which is what stops you. We can get to that next if you want. But on the outside of it, the what stops us really does stop us.
Okay, so yeah, let's go there for a minute then.
Listen, I mean, if people got stuck, stopped, or stalled in anything they were pursuing or want more of, you got to step back and ask yourself, what's stopping you?
Right.
What's stopping you from pushing on, or pushing the boundaries, or being uncomfortable, or going into the unknown? Well, first, we already know that our brains are only wired to be safe, to survive.
Yep.
So if you understand that the brain is wired to do that, the question becomes, well, what mental constructs, here it comes, that's in the mind that really jump out of you and says, hold on a second, do you really think this is a smart idea? Well, hold on a second, do we really know everything we need to know before we proceed? Or if you do this, what if you don't know it perfectly? Like, we could look stupid here. Maybe even.
Well, I was going to say the fear of the unknown, right? Fear is that massive driver.
That's right. So there's what I've come to call the three keepers. There's three keepers that live within the subconscious mind. That is a part of what keeps you safe. These three keepers were born out of adversity, out of crisis, out of upset during your entire childhood into your adolescent years, where you became the person you became because and thanks to the keepers.
Yep.
And those three keepers are as follows. We call them Jeff, the keeper of judgment, the keeper of ego, and the keeper of fear. So any one of those keepers are really, in fact, guards. They're standing at the gates of your home. That the minute judgment steps into your world, it says halt right there. Or the minute ego steps in and starts to rob you of your attention and focus, it says stop right there. Or fear. The minute fear starts to seep in, your keeper is right there saying, hey, it's okay, we'll back up. We don't need to deal with this fear right now. So the keepers, when activated, keep you safe, keep you small, keep you insignificant, but it keeps you stuck. It keeps you lacking success, and it doesn't have you forging ahead. So oftentimes when I've noticed that in working with people who are entrepreneurs or athletes or performers of some kind, the keepers are always in the throes. Now, people might say, well, hold on a second. Do I then get rid of my keepers? No, they're good. It's just they can't control you. They can't be the ones who are calling the shots in the way in which you live. So the keepers are built to keep you safe, keep you conscious, keep you aware, but it shouldn't keep you small, and it shouldn't keep you where you are. If you want to grow, You've got to notice the moment they creep up, you got to be able to distinguish them. So that begins the real journey, the awareness journey, the self-accountability journey to say, oh, okay, well, I want to go make 5 times more money, or I want to grow my business by 10x, as my dear friend Grant Cardone would say, or as soon as you say that, something's going to bubble up. And whatever's bubbling up is the very keeper you got to deal with. Well, hold on a second. What would your wife say? There comes the keeper of judgment. Or hold on a second. What if you don't get this right? What if you don't shine as bright? Well, there's the keeper of ego. Or what if we get it wrong? What if we fail? What if we lose everything you're putting at risk? There comes the keeper of fear. What if you just fail? So all of a sudden, those justifications that play in real time inside your mind is the one thing that holds you back. And we all have one of the three that's the strongest. It keeps you intact but stuck the most. We all have them. I have them. You have them. We all have them. And at different times and at different stages in your life, one will be stronger than others, but all three are not always pertinent. They're not always working together at the same time.
Rich, is there a way then? I love what you're saying here. Is there a way for any of us to be able to analyze our own situations, maybe in current state right now, to say which one is it for me, and then what could I do about that?
Yeah, it's inventorizing what stops you. I mean, that's largely
Okay,
why
but
just to
start to
kind
be
of
conscious about that.
well, I mean, at the end of the day, the only way you're able to be self-conscious of it is if you're actually up to something. This is why probably I had an allergic reaction to habit, because the term doesn't belong in conversation around performance, which I stand for. I mean, as a performance advisor
Yep.
to members of F1, NFL, MLB, and in some contact sports, I know that there's a handful of terms we just don't talk about ever, and that's one
Okay.
of them. And it's because it's one of those terms that don't belong in peak performance. I want you to write something down if you're writing anything down at all. You see, when it comes to understanding high performance, it's a function of having low tolerances. When you have low tolerance, you have high performance. But when you have low performance, it's likely because you have high tolerances.
Tolerance.
You put up with shit.
Right.
You're okay with people being late. You're okay with a little bit of a mess in that. You're okay with being mediocre and having it
Oh, that I
average
get. Yep.
and it being low key. So if I ask my son to give me 10 great free throws and he misses one, it's like we try again. Why? Low tolerance, high performance. And it's a function of understanding where you want your relationship to be with outcomes. If people say, but that sounds pretty harsh, that's okay. Then you're not going to end up getting at the source of what drives results. You're going to only always be an observer of them.
So, okay, now I'm going to go backwards because we talked about this thrownness and being thrown into, and oftentimes you cannot control that. Now, again, doing some digging here before we got here today, I learned that you left home at a young age. You left high school, which obviously was a young age. You got in the working world pretty quickly. Um, and at a time, from what I learned, you were making 300 cold calls a day when you first started your career. Now, I got to bring this stuff up because again, it does line up with the thrownness. It also puts us in a position right now because we've talked about technology and we can talk about just ongoing one-to-one communication. Um, the extension of that though becomes our audience right now as salespeople, as business owners, as entrepreneurs are wanting to get out there and grow their businesses on a regular basis. How did you push yourself? How did you psych yourself up at that time to make those cold calls each and every day? And then how did you stay so committed to the process? And I'm using cold calls as an example here right now.
Well, yeah, because I think of when you look at the hierarchy of marketing, advertising, and business development, it probably sits really low on the rung of things I can't wait to do to build my business.
Oh my God, right there.
Knocking on
Absolutely.
doors, yeah, knocking on doors, canvassing the streets, cold calling people, saying, "Hi, you don't know me, but I'd love to have a conversation with you about your money, your life, and your financial
Right.
future." I mean, that's not an easy thing to do, especially 300 times a day,
Yeah.
every day as a full-time job. So for me, I think to answer your question, first and foremost, is I think it's a function of your relationship to your hunger. And if you're literally hungry, if you've got rent to pay because you're just a day away from being thrown out and your fridge is constantly empty and you don't know where your next dollar is coming from, you have a different drive than those who are able to feast on the fruits of one's labor or the fat of the land, so to speak, to be able to say, you know what, whenever I feel like working or when I feel inclined to do something, I'll do it. So for me, it was the convergence of multiple crises. It was I left home really young, 16
Mhm.
years of age. Yes, got kicked out by my stepdad, and that's a fact. Number two is I moved out and in with someone that I had to now make rent. I thought, I didn't know that laundry took quarters. I didn't realize that cable wasn't free. I thought it just came out of the wall. I didn't realize I had to pay for this stuff. I was only 16.
Right.
So I, in a real hurry, grew up because of just that stage in my life. But as a result, you're hungry. So when you know that a cold call completed gives you $2, when you get a live guy on the phone, that's actually going to be 10. If they open up a trading account at the time at Midland Wall when it was 25, if they transacted in that day and by closing bell, you got a $100 bonus. So you thought to yourself, well, man, if I got to make $100, how many phone calls do I have to make to get to $100? And it was 13. My number was lucky 13. It
Yep.
took 13 calls to get to $100. So it was just a function of just numbers. It wasn't about feelings. It wasn't about habits. It wasn't about anything else other than I have to eat. If I don't get $100 today, doing that 5 times a week, that's $500. I got rent at the end of the month, which is $800. I got to make these calls. So I think for a lot of people who are sales professionals, especially entrepreneurs, whether they're in the real estate game as a realtor, whether they're a mortgage professional, whether they're lending money or financing stuff or refinancing people, it is a function of simply doing more. You want to make more money, you got to connect more dots. You want to make more than that, connect many more dots.
Yeah.
And it's a function of getting out there rather than waiting for it to come in. So, you know,
Hunting
for
versus
me,
order taking.
I'm sorry?
Hunting versus order taking.
Yeah, causing and
Right.
creating,
Yeah.
not waiting and envisioning.
Right.
So, you know, as I've worked with Tony Robbins for almost 12 years, as I worked with Robin Sharma, Deepak Chopra, I mean, guys who've written books around the whole function of causing and creating, you've got to understand one thing. If you're writing down notes, folks, write this down. You've got to be the source of results. You've got to be the source of results, not chase them. Chasing results gets you none. Being the source of results gets you them all, because you're where it happens. You're exactly where it happens.
As you brought up those names that you just did, I wanted to ask you about that. You know, was there a common theme? Because I do a lot of learning, as I mentioned earlier, and I have found a lot of common themes amongst a lot of the most successful, a lot of the best teachers out there. What was the common theme that you found in all of them? Because I mean, I don't know if we've even mentioned today, but Zig Ziglar, Bob Proctor, Tony Robbins. Um, was there something there that again you found as a very common theme amongst all of them? That is that almost big umbrella message that everybody can, you know, really leverage to enhance their own personal situations?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think what I found extraordinarily amazing about them all is that they were original thinkers. You know,
Right.
they converged on their own life journey combined with their own fervor to be a student and research, and then they brought in their own thinking around what the current problem, challenge, or upset was in the world that they somehow could actually resolve. I feel like they all found their calling rather early, and they stuck to it. And so every day they lived intentionally, where everything they did was in the fulfillment of that intention and of that calling. So they're always living their calling. I feel that many of them didn't do it to be famous. Tony Robbins didn't do it to be famous. You know, Deepak isn't looking to be famous. Robin Sharma isn't looking to be famous. I mean, the guy lives in a farmhouse in Tuscany. I mean, right out of the limelight, not even in the country in which he grew up in. I mean, a lot of these people are just really true instruments for impact. And when activated, they show up like the Avengers, you know, like Batman. You know, you see the bat signal and Batman comes off the couch, goes through the bat cave, puts on his gear, and out he comes to solve a problem. I feel like today what's happened is that in the world of human betterment, everyone wants to help, but very few help themselves. And so we're really quick to share knowledge. We're super fast to lend our insights. But at the end of the day, and here it comes, you've got to be a living demonstration of the stuff you speak and the shit you share. I mean, if you're not a living demonstration for your stuff, anyone can come and audit my life at any time. And I own everything I am, and I owe everything that I am not. And so as a result, I know I'm a living demonstration for the things I talk about, preach, and publish about. And so for me, I feel like may I say, the old guard of the human betterment business world, a lot of them, if not 99% of them, because I can't guarantee because I never audited them all, they were a living demonstration of the stuff they spoke about, they presented, they taught, they workshopped, they published. Tony Robbins does 100% of the things he teaches people in his life. I know him and Sage very well, and they live what they preach. Same with Deepak, and same with Robin, same with Grant Cardone and Brandon Dawson and Brad Lee, and the list goes on. I mean, I've worked with dozens of these guys that continue to be very powerful to this day. And
Yeah.
Jim Quick, I mean, one of the most incredible guys in the world of neuroscience and happiness thinking. He just great person. All these people are very good at living consistent with their word. So I think that's the theme, brother. I think the theme is they're a living demonstration of what they teach and preach. They are what they say you should do.
You mentioned Brad. Brad was on the show recently, not very recently, maybe a few months ago. But as you're bringing all these guys up and you're bringing all this up, it takes me right into a natural question of asking you, what are you doing on a daily basis when it comes to feeding your brain, keeping your body in the right place so that you're prepared for anything? And again, I come back to what does that daily routine look like? Maybe what is that that dedication, that commitment, that discipline to bettering yourself look like in a day for you?
I mean, that's a good question. That's a great question. I mean, first and foremost, I'm lucky to have formed a lot of good habits early. And so who I am is a real collection of great habits formed young. Again, remember, man, I didn't come from a beginning where I was set up to win. So what I'd done was
Right.
I'd
No
studied
silver spoons, no
no
saving a
silver
cat
spoons.
from a burning tree.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Yep.
that's right. So for me, I really truly created and designed the person I want to be, just quite frankly, intuitively.
Right.
I think that's really what it came down to. It was intuition. It was actually watching the movie Wall Street, the great famous movie by Oliver Stone,
Yeah.
featuring Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen, where in the movie Michael Douglas actually plays Gordon Gekko, and it was who he was in the movie and what he became as a big player of Wall Street. I said, I want to be like that. And once he said greed was good, I thought, okay, great. Let me go learn everything I got to learn about the stock market. I had no idea I'd be in the stock market. I didn't know what stocks, bonds, mutual funds, puts, calls, and warrants were. But that spoke to me. I said, that's the person I want to be. Not the bad parts, just the good parts, the rich parts. And so I get studying and I write courses, and I failed at first, and then I rewrote and then passed and then got myself in that space, and I never looked back. So for me as a investment banker, wealth management, financial life professional, overseeing billions of dollars worth of decisions with celebrity clients ranging from members of the royal family right through to athletes and everyday millionaires. For me, what keeps me really kind of on point is three things. One is I really watch what I eat. Number two is I do exercise feverishly, not egotistically. I'm too old to want to look good. I just want to feel. And number three, and most important, I understand the power of longevity. I understand the importance of skincare and rest and sun exposure and digestion and aging elements and understanding recovery and resilience and such. And it might be because of my exposure to the NBA. I'm very close with Mike Mancius. I thought I had his book here somewhere. It's actually on the other side of my office, but if I'd showed it to you, he just got his book just released today. It's called Game Plan. LeBron wrote the foreword. I'm so proud of my brother. This is the guy who was the chief performance advisor to LeBron James for 21 seasons, and just wrote the book that talks about exactly what he's doing. But why I'm telling you that is because exposed to things like what Mike and his modalities do to help a LeBron James perform, and watching what a Tom Brady does to perform, and to see what some of these peak athletes like Lewis Hamilton does to perform, F1 driver, I emulate some of those things. So I have recovery machines in my home. I have infrared saunas. I understand cold bath and plunges. I understand insulin level management. I understand intermittent fasting. And again, I'm not doing any of that to look good. I'm doing all of that to last long, right?
Right.
To
Yeah.
last
No, I
long.
got you.
And
Well,
and
because
that's
it affects the mind, the body, and the soul, right?
well, you got it. I mean, when I was young, I was working out and doing stupid things and drinking raw
Yeah.
eggs and mixing crappy protein powders that never ever quite dissolved just to look good, just to get big. But you fast forward, and now I'm well into my midlife arena. It's like I don't need to look good. I just want to feel great.
Yeah.
And if looking good comes, and that's better, that's great. That's a bonus. But let me just make sure I feel good. Let me make sure
Feeling
that
good.
I'm feeling centered and I've got my strength and I got my core and I can perform. I can speak as I do and lead programs as I do and travel the world as I do and work with my clients when I have to and not
It's
come
so
off
important.
planes jet lagged and upside down and needing weeks to recover.
Well, tell me this though, like seriously, look for the short little time that I know you, and I've done a little bit of digging. There's a jet setter over there. Like you're running from place to place. You're with a lot of different people on a regular basis. Are you a time blocker? Are you a scheduler? Are you a planner?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a time blocker. I mean, I mean, if you want to see the quality of one's life, look at their calendar and the way they
Okay,
manage it. I mean, because
love
that's
that.
a
Love that.
big indicator. If you looked at my clock and you looked at how I'm managing myself and how I actually inventorize my time and what I make time for, you'll see that things are blocked off. I mean,
Yep.
from the minute I get up to the things I have to do before I start my day, for me, I know that for me to function at peak performance, I got to really manage my time. So I treat every 15 minutes in those intervals very, very sacredly. That's important. I also have a business where I have an office in Toronto, I have an office in Vancouver, I have an office in New York, an office in Los Angeles, and Miami, and London. And then for me, I have partners in those cities that I'm able to work with. So they emulate and imitate much of what I do in my home base of Toronto. If I'm anywhere else in the world, more often than not, is likely New York. But for that, I've got people that do things in other places. So
Right.
understanding that you can't do it all is a very good admission to have that early in your business. As a realtor, as a mortgage lender, as anyone in that business, in order to scale and dominate, you've got to move out of your own way, and that's super important.
So okay, what would you say to anybody who hasn't got the discipline then to prepare to plan ahead? But instead, sort of, I just fly by the seat of my pants in a day.
I think it's a determination, brother. I don't know if it's about the discipline. I wouldn't get that far that fast. I mean, I used to be the president of the Real Estate Investment Network. We ran 35,000 members representing over $5 billion in real estate acquisitions.
Hmm.
I mean, that I ran that company for over 10 years with my dear friend and partner, who's now the CEO of that company, Patrick Francie. And I'll tell you something, the people who were able to scale great portfolios were the ones who weren't taking things personally. It wasn't about them. It wasn't about their brand. It wasn't about their vector or image. It was about making one thing work, and that's more. Making more money, generating revenue, increasing values. And so when you remove that part from the conversation, when you're in business, it shouldn't be your personality. When you're in business, making more is not a function of more fame or a function of more celebrity. It's a function of increasing the bottom line, increasing valuation, watching your margins, and having an exitability. So I found that whether I coached real estate investors for a period of time or realtors or mortgage professionals, for me, I started recognizing that for those who are really stuck and attached to just doing it all on their own, there will be an imminent and inescapable burnout, not just professionally and personally, but also financially, because there's only so much you can do. And
Yeah.
here's another phenomenon. The older we get, the less we want to do because you want to
Oh,
hang out with your
naturally.
kids.
Of
You
course.
want you want to go see your kids play on the diamond,
Of
on the
course.
pitch, or on the rink. You want to be there for the tournaments and the playouts and such. You want to be there with your wife and enjoy her company and the company of each other. You don't want to work harder as we grow older. We want to work less.
Right.
So a function of scale is in direct correlation to the science of scaling. So the first maneuver is you've got to emulate. You've got to replicate yourself. And how do you do that? You use systems like the ones that you guys have got. You start leaning into intelligence that realtor associations like the one who sponsors the show and what they're telling you to do and listen and lean in. You've got to start scaling smartly and swiftly, not eventually and as a reaction to something that's gone wrong or upside down.
You say that so wonderfully. I think that there's so many people. In fact, we know there's so many people that focus on a regular basis about make more, make more, make more, and lose sight of what that actual time looks like, and how at the end of the day, it's time that we want. It's not necessarily money that we want. I mean, I want more money for sure. I don't want to downplay that, but I want it to have more time. And at some point, if I lose sight of that, or I lose sight of the processes in which I operate and what I'm actually focused on, I probably don't get what I'm actually looking for. Now that's part of the roller coaster of life, right? And I would ask you that when life would throw you, Richard Dolan, a roadblock, a challenge, when something gets you so down, so thrown off your game, how do you get back into go mode?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really a function of just what you make it mean. I mean, we are, as my dear friend Werner Erhard would say, we are all meaning making machines. Something happens, you label it. Something goes wrong, you label it. Something doesn't go the way you want it, you interpret it and you create a story out of it. Again, another reason why habits is a title of a story that's been told. So for me, and a big part of my performance coaching portfolio, which has really shrunk over the years as I've been focusing on other things, what I came to respect and appreciate is the moment a challenge, crisis, or upset hits, the moment it strikes, it's kind of like what the book of I Ching says, is that the event is irrelevant, but the response is everything. And so should you, in fact, really be response able? So responsible, but response able. If you're able to be response able, where you can turn an adversity into an opportunity, well, now you've got yourself a very different way of, in fact, welcoming challenge and crisis. After all, when you look at the Chinese characters of actual danger, it's crisis. The character of that makes up crisis, and the same caricature of opportunity. So actually, opportunity, the word opportunity lives inside the term danger in Chinese. It's crisis and opportunity. That is danger. So it lives even in language, that whenever there's a challenge, upset, crisis, and or something that really slows you down or bums you out, lean in and listen. There's something in there for you. And if you don't, if you deflect it, if you step away from it, if you ignore it, or if you belittle it, all you've done is shrunk the greatest learning opportunity you can probably get.
My man. You run deep, brother. I wish we had like hours right now to unpack this, because I got hours of stuff circling in my head to go, okay, this and this and this and this.
We should do a workshop together, man. I mean, if there's one thing I like about the way we conversed earlier on, is that, you've got to intellectually battle and challenge. This is the function
I want to
of
battle
mind sharing.
further on habit. We just don't have the time, because I
mind
love
share.
that. I love that.
But that's a function of mind sharing. Yeah. Mind sharing is when you make music, it doesn't sound harmonious out the gate. When you create music, you're going to hear a lot of tunes that aren't even in tune with the synchronicity of the harmony. But in order to create symphony, you've got to bring that music together. And you're doing it, brother, with MindShare. MindShare is about creating symphony with intellectual thinking, thoughts, and the machinery behind it. So I think, given what we did here, it's a really good testament to the fact that we can come out the other end smiling and agreeing and aligning that it's all about mind sharing. So let's talk about workshopping something together one day soon.
Let's do that. Listen, before we sign off, I got to ask you a real important question here, and this is this one sort of puts the cherry on top of all our shows.
This is the big one.
This is a big one, right? And I'm curious to see what your answer is. Okay, because we've asked it. I think this will be 284 times now. How do you know? It's the end of the day. Okay, end of the day. You've done everything you had to do today. How do you know it's been a successful day for you?
That's a great question. I love this question. I've never been asked it before, so I'm grateful that you asked it of me. How do I know that the day? I'll tell you how many people think that they know it was a great day. Your to-do list has been crushed.
Yep.
All the boxes were checked.
Yep.
Or there's no more phone calls to be returned, and all the emails, like that email indicator, is now net zero. I mean, you've caught up. You got everything done. The to-do lists have been demolished, and all the things you hope to achieve has now been annihilated. But here's how I know I crushed it, is that there's nothing left in me to ponder, think on, or act for. Where I feel like I've left everything out on the playing field, and there's nothing else for me to do over here. There's nothing else over here that feels like, no, 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 I got one more left in me. Hold on, let me in, let me back in. I got one more left. No,
Yeah.
I've left it all in the field, and there's nothing else left for me to do. I'm completely at peace. I have a sense of calm, and quite frankly, in reflecting, I have a sense of reverence and celebration for a day worth having fought for.
I love that, bro. You know, it's funny. For all the times we've asked it, there's not a person that's ever mentioned the word money.
Mm.
And I find that interesting because, and I love the answers. I think they're genuine, they're real, and they're exactly what they should be. And it's
You
just
know why though?
interesting when you get people thinking about it. Nobody comes back and says, I made a bunch of money today. I just think that's
Well,
enlightening for everybody to really, really, really let that sink in.
but I'll challenge you on something, and
Yeah.
this is just us challenging it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you ask an American that? You ask an American that
I've
question?
asked
I'm
them.
willing
Yeah.
to.
I asked Brad that. Brad didn't say money. Actually, I should go back.
Well,
Knowing Brad, he might have said money.
Brad may have said money, man. I'm gonna
Brad
tell
might
you
have
right
been the
now,
one
I'm
guy
with
that
my
said
bro.
money.
We should get you down to Vegas when he and I co-lead a workshop together. I think you'd love our time
I see that
together.
coming up, bro. Yeah.
I know it's coming up and it may not be working for you, but anyways, back to my point.
Yeah.
I just find that Americans do make the measure of a successful day lived or week conquered is a function of money or making more. And I feel that maybe being Canadian, we might be a little bit more introspective. But here's the bottom line: is that you said it, and I'm going to close off with what you
Yep.
said.
Go
You're
for it. I
right.
was going to ask you final words to tell us where we could find you as well.
Listen, I mean, you can find me where I am, but here's the point, because I want to make this about you. The reality is it's all about growing richer in the things that matter most. I think that's what's so poignant about the question that you ask. And if time is important, grow richer in it. Get rid of all the shit and things and fluff and stuff that's actually really weighing you down and preventing you from doing the thing you want. Or if it's freedom, or if it's being able to control your choices, or have the power to do as you want, when you want, whatever it might be. But here's what I'll promise you. The older you get, the later the stage it goes, and the greater the state of mind you become, you will want to grow richer in the things that matter more to you than ever before, no matter what. So focus there. Grow richer, not in money, not in wealth, but in worth, right? The value you get from and give to life. And so when you do that, everything fits right. And I know that you're on that path, my friend. So congratulations to you and your family for doing just that.
Mr. Richard Dolan, I thank
My
you.
man.
I am super grateful for the time you spent, the insights
So
today.
am I.
Like I said, I got hours I want to unpack with you. I got so many questions more. This has been just deep,
We'll do it again.
insightful,
We'll do
actionable.
it
I look
again.
forward to it. I really look forward to it, man.
And I'll get you on my show. I'll get you
I
on the
look
Courageous
forward to it.
Conversations. I'd love to get you on my show.
Rich, I thank you, brother. I thank you very, very
Mhm.
much for making the time on the MindShare podcast today, man.
My man, appreciate you, and good luck in all the things that you're doing and doing so damn well at.
Thank you, bro. I will talk to you very shortly. If you still got a few, stick around. Otherwise, I'll catch you on the flip side. But you're the man, brother. This has been
My
awesome.
man, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Wow, what an episode. What an episode. You are either listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms. Maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. While you're there, be sure to check out the details for our upcoming MindShare Mastermind taking place here in Toronto, September 16th through the 18th. We're going to have some amazing, amazing special guests coming to join us. Also, while you're at the website, download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle so you can build more mindshare to get more market share. Anyhow, for all inquiries, just get in touch with us today. Don't forget to leave a review. RateThisPodcast.com/mindshare101. We'd be super grateful if you took a quick moment. Give us a big 5 stars. Tell us how much you love the show, how much you loved our guest today. Again, that's RateThisPodcast.com/mindshare101. If we haven't yet, let's connect on Facebook and TikTok at MindShare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. Just before we sign off, I want to give a big thank you to Kits Keep in Touch Systems, REM Magazine, and OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association. This has been another episode of the MindShare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.